curious to do two things. I'm gonna make this just how it says on the box, but I'm also curious to try making my own version of a Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuit using my ultimate gluten-free biscuit recipe I posted last month. I'd say looking at the ingredients on this, there's some things that make me a little dubious, but some things make a lot of sense. We're both using rice flour, some starches, some whey powder, a little bit of xanthan gum. There's definitely some ingredients on here that you would only really see a big food manufacturer use. The thing that makes me the most maybe dubious is that all you add to this is cheddar cheese and water. And I would love to see it calling for buttermilk, for instance. This is a really uniform flour. I was wondering if there would be like, little chunks of fat in here, but it looks like kind of like cake mix, like box cake mix to me. And then this would be our herb blend for the herb butter sauce. I'll get my oven preheated to 425. The recipe calls for a ½ cup of cheddar. I kind of wish they gave a weight measurement, but I'll give a generous ½ cup here. So we've got our water and ½ cup of cheddar cheese and biscuit mix. They want me to stir this together and not overmix. Easy enough. All right, that's looking like it's about come together here. I don't want to go too far. Scoop it out onto a pan. I've got a sheet pan with some parchment on it. So these are a drop biscuit. I usually do like a laminated biscuit, but I think these are supposed to be as easy as you can get. Now the hard part here is they say to put this in 12 equal portions, and a part of me really wants to weigh all this out and get 12 perfectly equal portions, but I'm gonna try to control myself and just eyeball it. Growing up in Michigan, I don't think biscuits were like a very big deal. I live in North Carolina now. Biscuits are a little more of a thing here. But I will say, Red Lobster's Cheddar Bay biscuits, I was aware of those. Those were kind of a thing, I think everywhere. Stop trying to make it perfect. Okay, I'm gonna get these in the oven, wash up my hands. Cool. All right, while that's in the oven, let's make this butter. All right, let's see what's in this herb blend. Looks like it's garlic, salt, onion, parsley, a bunch of other stuff. Oh yeah, definitely a lot of garlic and onion powder. I got a feeling this might be the best part of these biscuits. Yeah, a lot of onion. Onion's the first thing I get, garlic. I kind of expected it to be a little bit more parsley. All right, spoon or brush the herb butter while still hot. I think what I can remember about Red Lobster biscuits is they are very buttery. So I think I need to make sure I use all of this. I might leave one unbuttered, just kind of curious how much of these is the butter and how much is the mix. They smell really good. A lot of it might be the butter, but it smells great in here. It says serve immediately. I think these would probably benefit from cooling for a couple minutes, but I'll try one. They're not bad. I think I'll be curious to try this one without the butter. They don't have a ton of flavor. They're definitely they're a little heavy. They're a little gummy. Kind of stuck to my teeth a little bit. But I do wonder if they just need a couple minutes to cool. I think if these cool for a little bit, some of that excess moisture might kind of come out, and I'll be curious to try again. So I'm gonna give these just a couple minutes and taste them again. All right, I gave these a little bit of time to cool while I kind of cleaned up some of my mess here, and I'm kind of curious to see if that has done it any favors. I'd say this one I've already torn out or torn open definitely feels like lighter. It helped a little bit. Yeah, I'd say they got a pretty good bake. The bottoms look really good. They got some good color. All the cheese is melted. I'm curious to try this one. I didn't put any butter on. Yeah, it's less gummy. The texture is a little bit better now. It still is lacking a little bit of structure. I do wish it had a little bit more kind of bready, crumbly. It's hard to describe a great biscuit, but there is something a little bit kind of lacking structure. But the big thing on this one that I didn't put any garlic butter on, the only real flavor I'm getting is from the sharp cheddar, but the biscuit itself doesn't taste like that much to me. I put a little bit more than a half a cup of cheddar, but if I made this recipe again, I'd definitely add more cheddar than what they called for. Now I want to do a from scratch version of this recipe, or my own take on this recipe. So this is going to be based on the ultimate gluten-free buttermilk biscuit recipe I posted last month. There's a really detailed video on how to make these, so I'm not going to go through all the steps in detail here, mostly just kind of focusing in on what I'm doing different. And I've never actually tried this. We're going to do it live and see how it goes, but I see no reason this wouldn't be delicious. So I have a batch to make a dozen biscuits here, and I'm going to cut in my butter and my shortening. Part of, I think, what makes a great biscuit, when you hand cut in the fat into the flour, you end up with like little pockets of that fat, and kind of expands in the oven. It contributes a little bit to the rise of the biscuit, and you get these little pockets of flavor too. And then the first new step, so normally I'd put in the buttermilk at this point, but I'm gonna go ahead and toss in the cheddar cheese here and see if I can get that kind of coated in some of the flour. I've got almost a cup here. I'm not sure I'm gonna use all of it. That's a little more than half. Let's see what that looks like. A little bit more. Oh, what the heck. Who am I kidding? Let's put it all in. Cheddar's pretty well mixed in there. And then I've already measured out, this is 300 grams of buttermilk. I'm going to give this a few stirs to combine it with all of the dry flour mix. That looks pretty good to me. I'm going to put some flour down on the board here, dump this out, and start working on a little bit of lamination. So far this looks how the biscuits normally look at this point. I don't feel like the cheese is really changing anything. So we're going to start doing some folds to start to get some of those layers into this. All right, I think I'm going to get this to its final thickness here so we can start punching out our biscuits. I usually aim for about an inch thick. I think that gives a nice tall biscuit, a little bit of crunchy outside, some tender inside. Always flour your cutter. Straight down, quarter turn, pop it out. This is actually a bigger cutter than I meant to grab, but that's okay. So instead of a dozen biscuits, we'll probably end up with, I don't know, maybe closer to 9. All right, I'll get these in the oven, and I'm gonna make a special herb butter for these to kind of copy that Red Lobster one as well. For our herb butter, I put together 2 tablespoons of butter, and then I'm just kind of winging it on the spices here, but I put a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a half a teaspoon of onion powder, and a half a teaspoon of parsley, and a quarter teaspoon of salt. And we'll see how that goes. There's definitely more parsley in here than I saw in the Red Lobster one, but I kind of felt like, at least visually, it would have been nice to have a little more herbage on those biscuits. So we'll see how that works. And then as per tradition, I forgot to start a timer for my biscuits. I eventually started one. I think they've been in there for about 4 or 5 minutes, so we'll be back when they're ready. All right, just like the other ones, I'm gonna put some butter on while they're still hot. These few here, these are from the re-roll. These ones are extra tall. I'm gonna give these a couple minutes to cool, let the structure set up a little bit. All right, I've cleaned up my mess and I've let these cool down for a little bit. They smell really good, they look really good, they got a good rise. I don't think having the cheddar in there really changed very much about how these normally cook up for me. So I'm pretty excited to see how they taste. I guess in fairness here, I'll taste the one first that I didn't add any butter to. Yeah, that looks like a good biscuit. There's definitely some good layers going on in here. Yeah, even without the butter, this has a lot more complexity going on, which shouldn't be too surprising. This has real buttermilk. This has real butter. The other one called for water. Even with putting in, you know, a whole cup of cheddar, it's definitely not too much cheddar. All right, look at this one. Definitely better with the butter. Who knew? I'd probably do the same amount of onion powder, but I might scale back the garlic powder a little bit. Maybe just like a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. These are probably too big if it's this style of biscuit. Just because, you know, this is the size biscuit I might make if I was making like a sandwich. And maybe that'd be really indulgent to make a sandwich with one of these, but I imagine that you would probably be eating these straight up without putting anything inside of them. And a smaller biscuit would probably make sense. Comparing the two, you know, I don't want to be too negative. I think these were good. You know, if I was at dinner and somebody put these on the table, I would be thankful. I would absolutely eat them. They don't necessarily feel special to me, but they were pretty good. The butter was definitely doing most of the work. I think the biscuit was just okay. These definitely feel special, but these are also a bit more work. So I'd say if you see these in a store and you're curious, I would give them a try. I would use more of the sharp cheddar than the recipe calls for. I might spend a little more time shaping them than I did. You know, I just kind of dropped them right into the pan. I might shape them a little bit more. I think they might cook a little nicer that way. And definitely don't skip the butter. The butter's doing the majority of the work here. But if you have a little bit more time on your hands, if you like baking, these do feel special. These are a special treat. These will really knock somebody's socks off. So I do think they're worth checking out. Maybe I'll write up my thoughts on these in a recipe and put it on wellproof.com if anybody's curious to go over there, check it out. And if you have any ideas for some other mix-ins that you might put in your biscuits, I'm really curious to hear what everyone else comes up with. Somebody on the forums just the other day mentioned possibly putting in blueberries. I never would have thought of that, and I'd be really curious to try them. If this recipe inspired you, please go to wellproof.com. You'll find this recipe. You'll also see a roadmap. There's a bunch of things that I'm thinking about. Detroit-style pizza, sandwiches, donuts. I'd love to hear what people are excited about, what you think I should be working on next. And there's a community there that I would love for you to join. I'm trying to build a nerdy little corner of the internet where we can all talk about gluten-free baking, get excited and share our ideas. And it's a place for us all to go that isn't Facebook, it isn't the algorithm, just kind of our own little space. So check it out and think about joining. It's totally free. Do you want a biscuit? Wendy. Cheddar Bay biscuits. Can't say I don't love you.